power of love, the power of love. Come and listen to the stories that change the way that you see, the things that you hear will help you to feel empowered every day.
Hello and welcome to The Power of Love, exploring the most powerful force on earth. I'm Mia Saenz, I'm your host. And in this episode, we have Ashley Cox. I adore Ashley. Hi, Ashley, how are you? Welcome.
Hi, Mia. Thank you.
So I've known Ashley for several years and I've watched her business move and grow, and she just flies with her gentlemen clients. She calls her business, or she calls what she does, executive coaching for nice guys. So we're going to find out about this and what this has to do with love, because in the framework of emotional intelligence, it all is based in love. So welcome to this episode.
Thank you, Mia.
What does love, first of all, what does love mean to you? And then we're going to get into about your clients and all of that.
Yeah, I think there are different kinds of love. There's the kind of love that God gives us, which is unconditional, unending. And then there's romantic love. Then there's love with, our kids and our friends, and it kind of takes different forms. Ultimately, in my view, it's taking another as yourself, taking their best interests as your own, and understanding that we're all one and separate at the same time, and navigating that space.
Thank you. I love that. And your guys, the men that coach with you, you call them nice guys. Want to talk about that?
Yeah, that actually came out of their own language. It's not something that I really came out the gate saying, but it kept coming up in my business where these guys were actually referring to themselves and others as nice guys. I was referring to it as codependent behavior or codependency or low self-esteem. And as it turns out, the most popular buzzword or catchphrase for what I was describing was just nice guys.
Mm-hmm. I love that they shifted that and that you saw that. That's really, really amazing. So how do you help your clients?
So I help them come home to themselves. Typically men and women, but we don't talk enough about men doing this. Men will overgive. They'll sacrifice. They're actually encouraged to sacrifice almost, and even to the point of giving their life for our country, for their family. And yet they are told that they're not allowed to have feelings about it. They're not allowed to have emotions about it. They're not allowed to cry. And so what ends up happening is they self-abandon.
Mm-hmm.
It's become socially acceptable for them to completely self-abandon, and they think that that's what makes them a man. When sure, you can sacrifice without abandoning yourself, which just means that you are with yourself. You acknowledge your emotions, you acknowledge your feelings, you acknowledge your needs and your wants and your desires. Maybe outside of those things that you are choosing to do, those actions that you're choosing to take, and a role that you're playing for your family or for your country. These things are not mutually exclusive. So you can serve, which is a beautiful thing, while also honoring yourself at the same time. If anything, you kind of have to, and you can actually continue to do those things that you'd like to do.
I have a great question for you. What happens to men's psyche or body, mind, and spirit when men come together with men to heal? Because you do these amazing healing retreats, and I just see tons and tons of happy men in the photographs and stuff. So will you share a little bit about that?
Yeah, I just finished up a retreat in Costa Rica, and the top feedback I got from the men during their one-on-ones was that it was so healing for them to experience other guys being vulnerable and sharing their problems. They didn't realize that other men had the same problems, and these are men from all different walks of life, all different jobs, all different ethnicities. And so to hear men from such various backgrounds have the same exact issue, it makes them feel less alone and less crazy. And there's a sigh of relief that happens. There's an exhale that happens. And also it loosens up some of the tension that they carry so they can actually start to heal.
Many of your clients are very high-end, financially high-end businessmen, and that's why you're an executive coach. How does working with you, like raising their emotional intelligence and supporting them through that, how does that affect both their marriages and their pocketbook?
Well, both are about leadership. And it really depends on what kind of leader they want to be. So typically they want to be a well-balanced leader. They want to be a well-loved leader. They want to be a well-respected leader. You can certainly be a dictator and build, an incredible company that way, but you lose everything else in the process.
Mm-hmm.
And so these men are seeking connection. They're seeking love. They're seeking some sort of balance. And when they clean it up in one area, it often affects the other. And so what that looks like is, for example, they'll come to me and say, well, I took out the trash and she still was mean to me. These are guys that one guy had a company that was valued at $1 billion, and he had one other partner in the company, and he was worried about taking out the trash and his wife being mean to him. And so it's interesting to see how when he cleaned up the boundaries at home and he started standing in his power at home, it also had a positive effect on his company, because even though they were doing well, there were still things that he needed to clean up. And the people who were under him and looking to him for leadership needed more clarity and direction and confidence from him. They were looking at him to set the tone in the same way that his wife was. And sometimes they have that together at work and it translate to home, and their brain doesn't quite make the jump or the leap, or doesn't understand how those two things are related. And so I break it down for them and go, well, you do it at work. So what does that look like for you to do it in your relationship? The reason that they don't is because their wife is typically, she gets triggered, she's traumatized, she's throwing a fit or a tantrum in a way that employees wouldn't. And it triggers them. And so all of a sudden they're not in their executive function. And so we work on regulating their nervous system. So when their wife does feel like that, or their girlfriend, or whoever they're with, when she does get to that place, he can stay calm in the face of her crisis and realize that it's not personal. Doesn't mean anything about his ability to provide or protect. It doesn't mean anything about him as a man. And he can breathe through it. He can regulate himself. He can keep his executive function intact and lead her through it in the same way that he leads his company.
That's really great. Do they recognize their shifts and changes heading for a space of, well, it's an awakening, really? And so do they recognize it as a movement into an awakening, a higher, whether it's through themselves, a higher state of being, or connection to spirituality and to love?
Really what it feels like is them tapping into themselves and something bigger than themselves. And also healing their childhood wounds and trauma, and realizing how much that affects how they're being. So when they come into the work, they usually think it's her fault. They usually think there's something wrong with her, or something wrong with him. And he's like, is it me? Is it her? And they're kind of asking these really sort of unproductive questions. And what they find is that when they get out of their own way by reconnecting to themselves, reconnecting to God, by healing their inner, their trauma, for example, if they were bullied in middle school, or they had to move around a lot in elementary school, or their dad was abusive, or even if their dad was really passive and their mom was anxious, they realize how much of a role those things play. And when they get out of their own way and reconnect to themselves and God, they realize that things just start to flow. Things start to move. They're not in resistance. They're not white knuckling life. They're not trying to control life covertly or overtly. And when they let go of that, they can actually step into love instead of manipulation.
Wonderful. Can you share with us, you spoke before about the nervous system. Can you share with us, because I'm going to ask you for 2 tools. Can you share with us like one of the tools that you would use? Not in full depth, but just share with us what you would do to calm someone. And I know each time their nervous system gets activated, and each person is uniquely different. A tool is uniquely different.
Mm-hmm. There's so many that people can use, to your point. What I find is that these are often men who were not taught how to regulate in childhood. Typically, they're co-regulating with their mother, and their mother is dysregulated. And so the child becomes dysregulated. He's feeling her heart rate. He's feeling her breathing. He's feeling her cortisol, her adrenaline. And the boy goes, naturally, he wants to please the mom, and he wants to align with the mom. And he also can't help but to be with her. So when his nervous system is developing between conception and 8 years old, he's adopting hers. He's adapting to hers and adopting it. And so what he needs to do is start to reparent himself.
Mm-hmm.
And what that looks like is two main things. One is creating the structure that he potentially didn't have in childhood. So a sense of routine, a sense of stability, a sense of, I kind of think of it as rocking, but it's a day in and day out type of thing instead of a momentary thing. So what that looks like is I wake up at X time, I do X activities, I do my affirmations or my mirror work, or I do my exercise, I do my meditation, whatever that looks like for them. Doing it around the same time every day, doing about the same thing every day, and creating that space for them to decompress. And that sort of reliable routine allows their nervous system to start to go, okay, this is predictable. In the midst of the chaos of work, in the midst of the chaos with my kids, in the midst of the chaos with my partner, this is reliable. This is one thing that's anchoring me in the midst of all of that, specifically anchoring them to themselves. And again, giving them the space to decompress and connect to something bigger than themselves. That's number one. And that's sort of where the heavy lifting happens. Like, it's kind of like going to the gym. You need to go to the gym regularly to get results. You can't just expect yourself to be able to deadlift 300 pounds if you haven't gone to the gym to do that and to practice it. And so the results really start in the repetition of, and the commitment of that routine. And then when they do get triggered, for example, when they do actually need to, the competition is here and they do need to deadlift that heavy weight, and there's a moment that's tense, their partner's triggered, they're triggered, that's when the routine really starts to, when they see the benefits of it, because they've been sort of creating that, that muscle. They've been building that muscle over and over again every single day. So when it happens, they're not doing the heavy lifting without having any preparation. So in that moment, they can breathe, they can sit with the uncomfortable emotions for at least 90 seconds. They can take 20 minutes to bring their heart rate down. They can identify, I'm dysregulated right now. I need to do X, Y, Z. I need to take 90 seconds. I need to breathe. I need to go chop some wood. But it's a lot more difficult to take those couple of seconds to respond instead of react, because that's really the difference. It's just about 2 seconds. It's a lot more difficult to pause and decide how they're going to respond instead of just compulsively reacting if they didn't have that baseline of that routine of that of the sort of building the muscle up until that moment. If they don't do anything before that moment, they end up just compulsively reacting. Like, they can't even help it. What we're really looking for is the ability to take those couple of seconds to decide how to move forward.
I'm speechless because you know that's not similar to my work, but similar to my work. And in the routine, in that whole, I don't know anybody else who actually, and I love Ashley, everybody. I've known her for years. She's one of my close girlfriends. But I didn't know how she coached. And it's silly to say, I'm so proud of you, but we say that to ones we love. What a magnificent experience that you're bringing to people, because most coaches don't do that. And I'm always talking about routines, to be able to build upon stuff. So this is really beautiful, powerful work. They're shifting their emotional intelligence, they're regulating their system, and knowing how, and I love how you say they can sit with it for 90 seconds and shift it in 2 and decide which way they want to go, because that really is the tell-all be-all on emotional growth, is how can you handle everything else that's coming at you without flipping out? And so apparently it's really a very beautiful path that you're teaching. And I just bless you for doing that. Really, really. I think that it's one of the most important, actually the most important system to create, because within that you got in shifting them in the morning, getting their interpersonal work done, getting their meditation, getting their physical, focusing back on their greatness instead of the lack thereof. Really, really stunning work. And I haven't said that to anybody on here like this before. So really, really wonderful. No wonder why there's major shifts, because I see you looking in as your friend. I see all this stuff popping all over, and I know you're magical, but wow, really, really impressive. Very, very, very special. Well, the other question that I had, I think you answered it, was about the emotional intelligence. If you could give an exercise for that, if you have another one you want to share, that whole routine situation, what people don't identify with or understand is that's the placement that keeps us calm and online and in place to achieve what we need to achieve. If there's one thing about, and I'll get girly here, if there's one thing about self-love, that's it. That's it right there. Dedicating to yourself. So if you can share one more idea on the emotional intelligent level, because a lot of people struggle with their monkey mind, the chaos, the continuing talking, the regurgitating stuff. I know that that's maybe more of a feminine thing than a masculine thing, but it still does happen to men as well.
Oh, absolutely. Almost all of my clients overthink.
Yeah.
So I want to clarify a couple of things. It's sort of, your questions are in a really good order. So I'm going to build on what I just said. And I'm also going to clarify what I just said a little bit, just to make sure that it's really important to me that everyone can walk away with like, okay, this is what I go do. And I know I just sort of word vomited. And so here's the idea that you take time for yourself every single morning, at a minimum 5 times a week, at a minimum. And it doesn't have to be a whole hour. The goal is an hour. If you can only get in 30 minutes, do your 30 minutes, but the idea is to be consistent. So you do that first. Secondly, when you're in a tense situation, it takes about 2 seconds to decide if you're going to react or respond. You want to respond, not react. So imagine like an EMT going to the scene of an accident. You want to be responsive, not, the mom freaking out, reacting.
Terrified.
Right? Exactly. So it takes about 2 minutes to decide, okay, I'm going to respond to this. I'm not going to react. And then then the next question is, well, how am I going to respond? So before you respond, which I'll get to in a minute, which is the emotional intelligence piece, before you respond, you want to take about 90 seconds to go into the feeling. So it only takes, if you really go into it, it really only takes about 90 seconds to let yourself drop into the fear, the anger, the anxiety, the sadness, whatever it is, to fully just let yourself go there, which many men don't, because we don't give them societally, we don't give them permission.
Right.
We've told them that it's weak. So they have a negative association with that. They make it mean something about themselves. Let's get rid of that, remove the shame, allow yourself to go into the emotion for 90 seconds. And then if you notice that your heart rate is really high, it takes about 20 minutes to bring it down to under 100. So the idea is to let yourself go into the emotion for 90 seconds. If your heart rate is still over 100 after that, take a walk and try to, or just go sit or whatever, and try to get it down under 100 before you do what I'm about to say next. So once it's under 100 and your partner's is under 100, you want to use very specific language with her. So for example, you want to say something like, maybe before, when you go on your walk, hey, I don't want to say something that I don't mean right now. I want to only speak to you with love and kindness and compassion and care and concern. And I want to hear what you have to say. I'm not currently in a place to do that. And so I'm going to take 20 minutes and I'll be back at X time to have this conversation with you. And I'll check in with you at that time to see if you're ready. How does that sound? And she's going to be floored. She's going to say, okay, sounds good. Because I want you to hear me too. Ultimately, that's what she wants. And so if you position it like that, instead of throwing your hands up and being like, I can't take this anymore, I'll be back. Right. So how you frame things is really important. in the context of, let's say, a text message, and she's texting you and you're at work and you're really busy, you might say something like, hey, I can't give your text the attention that it deserves right now. I will circle back with you at 7 p.m. And so the emotional intelligence piece is letting the other person know, I care about you. I want to hear you. I just don't have the capacity or bandwidth at this very moment. And it's because I care about you that I'm going to put a pin in this and circle back with you, so I can be 100% present and really hear you and listen. And then from that place, you do want to get into a state of curiosity, ask her questions like, how does that make you feel? Is there anything else? You want to dig and let her just get it out of her system and get out of the way. Like, don't worry about yourself just for a minute. Just let her let it out. And you'll notice, and you can set boundaries around, if she's blaming you and shaming you and doing all that, again, use the same language I just referred to. I can't process what you're saying right now. Can you say it in a different way that I can really hear and understand? And can you say it in a way where it might land a little softer for me, because I'm starting to get defensive and I feel like you're attacking. So I know that's not what you intend. Is there a way that you can say it that helps me understand you better? So when you start to shift your language and allow her to feel seen and heard, she'll bring her guard down. She'll be less interested in attacking you and more interested in usually actually making love to you at that point. So it'll shift the whole thing.
Beautiful. Really, really beautiful. And that's the power of love, everyone. Literally, conversation, knowing how to speak, dealing with your emotional intelligence. You're projecting a clear sense of who you are out to the world. And then when you are interacting with your loved one, it's in a profound way, right? Even if it doesn't, even if there's a little bit of stuff that needs to be clearing, it can be cleared smoothly and beautifully. I love that. Really, really. I'm a real big proponent of this. And especially recently, I'm going to give something away. My husband and I had separated for a couple years. And when I shifted my awareness, and I do this work all the time, you know that, Ashley, I've been doing this for 15 years. And so when I shifted my awareness and decided to come at a calmer, more peaceful way of speaking, I fell back in love. He was always in love with me. I always loved him, but I fell back in love. And it's really, and this is what you do for people, you help them fall back in love with each other, because the love story actually changes when you can identify instead of come at people, right? You can identify where the conversation is coming, how it's coming at you, what the true meaning and words are, rather than the hurt little girl or little boy within us reacting. I love that. Very stunning work. Very stunning work. Thank you. Wow. Okay. Ooh. What else would you like to share with us? What's on your mind?
My heart just goes out to these guys, talking to them all day, every day, getting messages. Almost every man that I know struggles on some level with self-esteem, with insecurity, with not being secure within themselves. They're avoidantly attached, anxiously attached, or they have a disorganized attachment. And they use or need women to respond or react to them in a certain way in order for them to feel good about themselves. And they just keep hitting a wall over and over again, because that's not the solution to the problem. So I just invite anyone that is bumping up against these rough edges in relationships, in relation to women, in relation to money, in relation to work, and feeling rejected, feeling abandoned. There's so much pain there, and continuing to try to get someone else or something else to solve that problem just isn't, continuing to try to get women to solve the problem for you, to get more money to solve the problem for you, to get your job to solve the problem for you, or the fancy new car. These are all sort of, you can't control those. They're external from you. The only thing you can control is you and how you react. And so, to your point, Mia, fall back in love with yourself first and foremost before you can expect anyone else to fall in love with you. Take care of yourself, love yourself, so you can take care of and love and respect yourself, and so you can respect others. Whatever you do for yourself, it allows you to do for other people. And if that's not cleanly in place or firmly in place, what you do for others it's not going to be clean. So it's not going to be from overflow. It's not going to be clean. And it essentially makes you needy, and it makes you an energy vampire. And women are going to be allergic to it or use you for their own gain, women that don't have great intentions. And you repel those women when you step into your power, and you attract healthy women who actually do love and respect you because you're loving and respecting yourself. So ask different questions and you'll find different answers.
I really love that. Being a coach for 15 years in this love and interpersonal development world, it was very clear to me that men were struggling, right? The little boy, and also I'm a mom, the little boy was abused a lot. And so is the little girl, but in a different way. And that buck up, don't cry, be strong, not allowing them to feel their emotions. And girls were always, be quiet. It's not important what you have to say. I love the fact that the world is changing and that the men are coming along too, because we love them. We love you guys, literally. If a woman has her self-love in place, there's no fear. And same with men. If you have your self-love in place, there's no fear either. So it's really beautiful. I love the work that you're doing. I'm super duper pleased with it. It touches my heart. I get emotional, so it touches my heart. So thank you, Ashley, for just everything that you're doing and who you've become to be able to do that. That's remarkable. Remarkable. Is there any, would you like to tell everybody how they can reach you?
Yes. First of all, thank you for the compliments.
Mm-hmm.
Everyone can reach me at Nice Guy Reform School on Facebook, on TikTok, and on Instagram. And you can send us a DM. You can follow. We'd love to. Oh, and YouTube as well. We'd love to hear from you.
Wonderful. Thank you. Thank you all for joining us. Thank you so much, Ashley. This was really a pleasure. Very exciting.
Thank you for having me, Mia.
Thank you. Have a wonderful day, everyone.